Hi, this is Mark Ziobro, and welcome to the Movie Buff Show. Today, my guest is Oualid Mouaness. He is the writer and director of 1982. It is a Lebanese drama romance set in 1982 during the period of the Lebanese War, and is currently playing in Los Angeles, having had its premiere on June 10th in New York City. Oualid and I talk about the film, its production, its casting, and more during this interview, so please stay tight and hope you enjoy the show. Thank you. Um, Yay. Okay. um, I wanted to, and if you don't, how do you pronounce your first name?
Walid.
Walid?
Yeah, like Wally the robot. Yeah.
Okay, Walid. Okay, it's really not.
Ever since that movie came out, it just made my life so and I love
um,
that. So,
so
yes.
I guess the first thing I wanted to know is like how you got the I- idea for this, because there's so many war films that have been made. Like, how did you get the idea to center it on the children and like keep it on that as a focus?
It wasn't particularly like I just don't tend to feel that war films, I mean, at least, I've seen a lot of war films clearly, and I just one of the interesting things about war films is most people think about the people who are in battle and they don't think of the people who aren't. And I've experienced war. I'm a child of war. I was born and raised between Lebanon and Liberia. Both countries have been completely devastated by different wars at different times. So, and at the same time, I just felt that there was never the story of the people who are non-participating in the wars. And those are the people that are usually the casualties of war, where, like, I felt it was necessary to tell a story about the people, the human experience. And the fact of the matter is, and it's exactly my experience. And I drew it from my memory because I realized that I've been marked pretty heavily by some of the battles that have happened in my life. And particularly 1982 for me was kind of like a turning point as well. In our My parents, we were deciding to move back to Lebanon from Liberia, and like everything was kind of set in motion. And then things were somewhat normal in East Beirut, and then this thing happened, and somehow it was the first day in my life that I truly experienced such magnitude. And I just felt it was necessary to say this. And in retrospect, as an adult, I realized that nothing has changed since 1982 in Lebanon, or since even before then. And it was necessary to show the human side of this narrative in order to really drive this home. Like, what is it worth? Wars never lead anywhere. Everything's still the same.
Yeah, I think no, I completely agree with you. I didn't. It's kind of striking to know that I think that some of the things going on in
Yeah.
the U.S. even things don't change. uh,
Yeah. I mean, for me, I mean, also, I mean, you don't make this kind of story, you don't make this kind of narrative in a vacuum, right? We
right.
don't. Like everything informs us. And of course, since then, there's been another war in Lebanon, which was devastating in '06. And then in the US, we had September 11th.
Hmm.
And then and then also we have school shootings in the US every so often. And it's just like it was interesting. I've had it. Sorry.
No, I understand.
I've had it, like, and the fact of the matter is, like, when August 2020 happened in Lebanon, it was another moment where you're like just confounded by the fact that we're still exactly the same. Like, it just takes a different face. I mean, even in the US, we have our wars. Like, we're at war with ourselves as a nation now. I mean, this is
Mhm.
my adopted home. I've been here for 25 years.
Yeah, of course.
And it's like it's why, you ask yourself. And yeah, so
Yeah, I
that's
think that was one of the striking things about your film was the at a certain point towards the end of the school day, the secretary had said, like, we're not graduating this year. This has been going on for 6 years, and like how you can imagine living with this just escalating
just, yeah.
violence and living just a normal life. Like, now it's so bad that this year we can't even do
Yeah, exactly.
do the graduation.
Exactly.
But I just like, and I don't know if this is, I don't know what kind of feedback you get on the film because like, there's, and and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously I think part of the film is about innocence,
Correct.
you
Yeah.
know, but there's this kind of like thought that people have that young young love is just this childish thing, and it's
When it's not.
yeah, and your movie like actually like I don't know like if this is a reaction you've heard other people like I'm getting to the point where they're loading them on the buses and I'm like still like I really want him to just tell her that he likes her and
Yeah.
like I really wanted that to happen even
Yeah.
though these terrible things are happening and I've
Yeah.
never seen like a like more adult emotions put into children having those types of relationships. I just curious if you could expound upon that whole like story and
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I had to go back to my emotional self, and I'm going to take you back to a moment in my life as a kid, because as a kid, I was kind of a little aware, like, and I was one of those kids that always had a crush and
yeah.
like love Lauren and all of this. And the thing that upset me the most, even as a kid, was was the fact that my emotions were sort of discounted to the adults around me.
Mhm.
They're, oh, it's puppy love or
Yeah,
whatever. And
exactly.
one of the main things that the script stems from is, and this is something that Abir says, where basically Majid gets expelled from school the year before because he had written a love note to a girl, right?
Okay. Mhm.
So this was one of the main triggers for me to write this story, because I remember how I felt, and I remember that I wrote this love note to a girl, and it was a pretty brave love note to write at the time,
Yeah.
because I didn't write "I want to kiss you." As a matter of fact, I had just seen, I think, Blue Lagoon, and I wrote "I want to make love to you." And then, of course, the girl gave the note to the teachers, and they called after my mother, and there was,
Oh,
yes, and it was really traumatic for me, because I felt like my emotions meant nothing to these adults who thought that they could judge them,
yeah.
and this, which was really where I felt I needed to go back to that moment in time where I am emotionally true to the kid that I was, and not look at my past as an adult looking at a kid in love, because my emotion to this moment, I
Yeah.
remember, it was very truthful. As a matter of fact, it was pretty much like an adult emotion. It's not very different. I had the butterflies, I had all of that,
Yeah.
you
It
know,
it
and
doesn't last sometimes and
yeah,
it happen, but when you're going through anything like that,
the
it's the
emotion
most
is
real
real.
thing in the world.
Exactly. And this was very important. And this was, I think this is something that I set out to do. And I gave the kids a lot of trust during the process of working with them, so that they would give me that as well. Like, they were having crushes on each other on the shoot, and I took those
Oh,
serious.
really?
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
we Sam had a date on the shoot, and not with Joanna.
Oh,
And it was
that's
very funny, because they were emotionally like very on, and I could read them. And I had Christine, who's on my casting team and was with me. Both of us, we both worked with the kids for about 6 weeks before the shoot, so we kind of knew what was going on. And it was very interesting. And it's like, it's, you just have to be truthful to the kids' emotions. And this film is about the kids emoting, not about me projecting what I think a kid should behave like when they're emoting. I mean, he's determined, and
yeah,
kids' worlds are complete, and adults discount that.
yeah, and I thought that the way it was, and I don't know how schools are like in Lebanon,
It's
but
like what you saw in the film, actually, very
yeah,
much
like
so.
where you could just like like that part of it made you focus more because it was so much unlike our like my experience where you could just like a 11-year-old can be excused and go walk around campus and take care of something else that he or she needs to take care of and have these moments to interact with each other
Yeah.
and then the whole thing was and the teachers that are kind of caught in the middle of the war as well
Yeah.
um and why I'm remembering Nadine's character.
Mhm.
Um,
Yasmin.
what was her first name again in the movie?
Yasmin.
Yasmin. Yeah, that's it. Her, and she's got like and I think it's something that wasn't fully like you kind of got the idea of it, but that she is like dating, I think, the other teacher,
Mhm. Joseph.
and
Yeah,
or and but she, he's very political and against what her brother's doing, and it just
exactly.
shows like how it pulls everybody in these different
Direction.
directions, and it didn't become close. Is that the impression you're trying to give, that it didn't really hit home until that day when you see the tanks drive by, or the
Yeah. Well, basically, this is a pretty polemic day and a pretty polemic war. I mean, in Lebanon's history, that moment in time, 1982 is this very taboo subject. We have not talked about it. This is the first
okay,
time ever talked about in a film, and everybody was expecting a very polarizing film from me because they're like, "Whose side are you going to be on?" The right-wing Christians, which is the Phalange, which were working with the Israelis at the time, and then you had the left, which was the progressive, and they were like all about Palestinian rights and everything. And they're
right,
like, you know, like so the country was completely split in half. And what was interesting is you had the split in every religion. Over time, the country, like the impression that was projected towards the West was that you had the Muslims were pro-Palestinian and the Christians were not. And this was not in fact the case. It was more like of it's the same as our left and right in the US.
yeah,
And it was so I felt it was really necessary to respect both those to treat both those sides with complete utter respect and seriousness. And then Yasmin represents, really, she represents my mother, she represents the teacher, she represents she represents the nonviolent solution, let's put it that way,
sure,
where basically it's like, okay, I know you guys are here and you're here, but the way you're behaving, you're just going to destroy the house. And this is really where she stands. It is a microcosm of the battle that was in Lebanon at the time. It is a microcosm of um, of just the whole country, and it sort of is something that was also those polemics existed in my family and in a lot of families. And I felt, though I didn't intend or nor want or feel the need to define what they are,
sure.
but because these kinds of polemics exist in every culture, in every society, in every country, I felt like I just needed to give enough of this, and then you can sense it. Because the film, really, the core story of the film is Wissam's love story and Wissam's wanting to express himself to Joanna, which was very important.
Yeah, and I think if that's your, I'm assuming, but it sounds like you're trying to say that you were trying to make a film that's not political. That it's
Yeah,
just this is these kids' day and how it's affecting
exactly.
them. It doesn't matter what's going on around them.
Yeah, I mean, while it is really a film not about the polemics of the politics, it is, I mean, on some level, the film is political because when you go into humanism to that level,
Hmm.
your position is so anti the politics that it's even stronger than politics itself. You know what I mean?
I got what you're saying. Yeah.
Like basically, people walk out of this film, and I wanted to make a film where people walk out of the film and they question what they just saw and they reassess everything that they saw, and they ask themselves, what was the war about? What was it about? Like, why? And you see this in the rejection that Wissam has when she touches his hand, and Tigran comes to life.
Yeah, yeah.
And Tigran stands for a lot of things. You know what I mean? It's really the ultimate rejection of war. And this is really what I wanted to say. Having been born and raised in countries that have and societies that have pretty much almost been destroyed by wars, one war, one battle after another, and people get into heated debates, and you're like, okay, like, let's have the debate in a safe space. Let's not have the debate and pull out guns and kill each other.
Yeah,
This is yeah.
and I think I liked what Yasmin said in the one scene where um she was discussing her brother with the teacher, and she's like, you believe that, and he believes this. Like he's like, well, his kind is tearing this country apart, and she's like, and he thinks you're doing the same thing.
exactly.
You
Which
know,
is
it's kind of like where's the middle ground type thing.
exactly, exactly, exactly. So that's sort of like I just felt like this is very important to say, and the film is sort of resonating with people, with Lebanese people who have seen it, because yes, I mean, to what end, you know? So
Can you
yeah.
talk a little bit about how you got like how you got the children actors involved, and did you have these people in mind beforehand, or was it a regular casting process? Just a little bit about.
Um, it's a little bit of both. I mean, I had been observing children and going and working with observe. I had a friend of mine who was a dramaturg for kids, and I would go every year to Lebanon, and I would just observe and
Okay,
watch classes and watch what they do and watch the kids do improv exercises. And I'd given him some of the scene work, some of the scenes or some of the situations, and watched kids improvise them with me, not them not knowing anything about me, just being a guest in his
sure,
classes,
yeah,
schools. So when it came down to shoot, like over that, I kind of realized one thing that was very imperative for this film to work. And it's basically the notion that when you create when you're doing a film about kids, you need to really create a kid's world in and of itself. And I realized that their world is very complete. And how can I do that? To do that, I devised a process, and I wasn't sure it was going to work. I think it worked ultimately because it worked in the film.
yeah,
So we cast a very wide net on 700. Basically, you can't cast a film with kids. Especially at this age, you really have to cast the kids within 3 months of shooting. Like you can't cast them earlier because they grow so fast and they change. I mean, we even felt them physically change from the beginning of the
I
shoot.
got what you're saying. That
Like it's like they grow so fast because you're dealing between the age 10 and 12, and that's the time when like they literally change by the day. Sometimes you're like, you know,
yeah,
and so the casting process was very abbreviated, very short, but I knew I couldn't greenlight until I felt sure I had the kids. I received the grant from Sundance. I used that grant to start the casting. I launched the casting. It took a month. We looked at 700 kids across multitudes of schools. From that, we came down to 150, brought those in. From those, I went down to 30 and brought them into a workshop. I had several Joanna, several Wissams, and it wasn't really a workshop. It's a workshop that I'd concocted because I wanted them to feel comfortable. And it was like really not called the workshop, it's called the hangout.
yeah,
So,
make it seem fun.
so exactly. So we brought all these kids together, and then they really started becoming friends, knowing each other. We'd watch movies together. Like I watched a few significant films with them over time. Like we saw The Rifle, the Jackal, the Wolf, and the Boy, which was a Lebanese film that I directed right before 1982, which had kids.
Right.
That was shortlisted for the Oscars. And then I saw My Life as a Zucchini, Au revoir les enfants, the Louis Malle film, the Goonies, and all of that. And it was almost like creating a cinema club where we watched these films and we sat down there and we discussed these films. And as we discussed these films, I never told them what I thought. I actually had them tell me what they thought of the child actors in these films. So then
Sure.
they created their own barometer for that. And I use that as a propulsion point. And then and it really gave them a lot of I trusted their observations, like why they like this, why they didn't like this, and they were very conscious of this, and I made them think a bit about what they're saying and why they like things. So they took this, as a matter of fact, and it helped them. By week three, end of week three, I delineated the roles and we started working on the roles. And then with that, I gave them I mean, it was really a two-way street of trust. I gave them the ability to tell me and the freedom to tell me if something didn't work for them, if something they would do differently. And really, a lot kept changing as we proceeded, as we got to the shoot, to the point that even on the shoot, they were so aware of what's happening because I told them this, we discussed the story. I told them to go ask their parents about it, and then we created situations like I need to find out if they've ever had a crush on someone. I
Yeah.
need them to tell me their secrets, and to do that, I had to tell them some of mine.
Okay.
You know, and
Yeah.
I think that created a two-way street. And by the time we got to shooting, it was just phenomenal because they were very comfortable telling me anything. I never really directed them, especially if it was serious. And I would always sit on the floor so that they don't feel like I'm their parent.
Yeah.
So I needed to make sure that that's separated. And yeah, I mean, it got to a point where they did so much beautiful work on set. I mean, Majid was even improving a lot, like the
Oh,
scenes
really?
with Nadine in the class. He was improving when he sees the boats, and but miss, there's this, like, I didn't direct him to do this. He was just so
Oh,
embedded
that's
in the
great.
role at that point that he just like really just confronted Nadine in the class. And I was rolling the classroom scenes because of the intensity of the movement. I was rolling two cameras at the same time, so that was
Okay.
really, really beautiful. And so to see those kids come to life was just like magnificent. And they gave me more than I mean, we barely, unless there was something very wordy, most of the takes with them were 1, 2 takes.
Yeah.
That's it. Move on. I had more takes with the adults than with the kids, and the adults were trained professionals,
Okay, and the kids were just
not actors.
not actors. That's
Not actors.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I liked what about that too is like there's that one scene where I think was or, he's pushing Majid.
Oh, when they fight.
Yeah, and like
Pushes.
I'm like thinking of this like a movie that I've seen 100 times would have the teachers intervene and break it up, and
Oh yeah.
it's about them. There was no adult
Yeah, there was no doubt.
intervention.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I really thought that helped you to understand where these people were coming from more and felt
And the
more
kids'
of it.
emotions are very raw. I mean, what I've learned from this is kids are honest. They're way more honest than adults. I mean, you saw like all the conversations, the dialogue that's happening between the adults. It's always like it's almost there's an elephant in the room and they're just beating around it and they're never talking about anything. And it's like they're almost like choke conversations. Whereas in
Yeah.
the kids' expression is direct. Like when Abir confronts Majid, she's direct. When Majid, like, you know what I mean, they don't really
What
beat
did you
around.
tell them? What did you say about me?
Yeah, yeah. What do you say? Like, you know, like all of that. Even when Wissam is angry and he's like, "What did you tell her? What did you tell her?" And he's like, "I didn't do anything." Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong? You know. And Majid's emotional landscape in the film, in my opinion, as a character, it's sort of the most profound, because he's the one who loses a friend, who needs to win the friend, who's been betrayed by her, and who clearly in the past maybe hadn't had a crush on Abir, and that's why she's like fighting him on it. You know.
Yeah.
So it's like that whole thing. It's like there's an entire history to them that you kind of feel, especially between Majid and Abir, who are the secondary characters, but they do form a very strong ground on which the two main characters kind of hinge. You know. So
Yeah, that's the hardest. That's one of the hardest things I think to do is to make it seem like they're actually classmates and not just 5 or 4 strangers
yeah,
at
and I think
you know.
part of, but I think the 6 week hangout with everybody brought that to them and made them feel that comfortable. You know. So absolutely, yes.
Now I know you have to take a phone call in like 5 minutes or so, right?
I pushed it. I pushed it till 3 o'clock my time, till 6 p.m. So it's fine.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Um, so let me think what else. 'Cause those parts I really enjoyed, and obviously I liked. It's honestly the only. I kind of like the influence of some of the Americanism in there when it
Yeah.
talks about the Blue Lagoon, which you've explained
Which
is
is,
really
yeah,
a significant thing to you. And then
endless
what was the other one? Endless
field.
love, and you know, but also the um when he and I forget the exact thing, but when he went to talk to somebody and you're playing.
To his brother. When he goes to the high school and there's the Bach 974 being practiced, that scene.
No, it's a scene where he's like there's somebody in a Kia
Oh
like
yeah, Eye
tickets.
in the Sky.
Yeah, and you had me listen to that like 20 times that day. I'm like, I forgot all about this song and it's so great. And I looked it up and it was from 1982.
Yeah,
That's when it was
exactly.
released, and I loved the attention to detail.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what
yeah.
made you pick that song for that
It
that
came
scene?
out
What is the
because
only song?
it had just come out actually that week. And it was a very big song for us growing up at that time as well. And what
Okay.
was interesting also, and it's sort of a nod to like Lebanon, to pop culture. Like I know, like in the internet age, we think, oh, we get everything in 2 seconds. What's really fascinating about that time period, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have anything, but we would literally, if a song dropped in the US, you
Yeah.
had it in Lebanon a minute later,
Oh,
like
really? Okay.
somewhere. Like it was not even a question. So even with all of that, what was going on, you still had the connectivity, you still had the pop culture, and it always got there. And there was BBC Radio, and there was Top of the Pops, and all of like we used to listen to these like on a shortwave, you know,
Yeah.
when they're happening as they're dropping, and sit there and record the songs. I mean, this is like this was very important to us, like, and I think that also tells you how even at that time the world was interconnected and people wanted to communicate culturally, you
Yeah.
know. So
And
yeah.
for some reason, I feel like that scene or that song choice just added this like emotional element to that
Oh,
movie.
absolutely.
I don't
Absolutely.
know why. I can't explain it. It's just kind of like it made the whole thing feel like just moment in time captured. You
Yeah.
know, and
Because the film is a slice of life in a
yes,
way, with the exception of like the fantasy part, which is Wissam, but it's very much a slice of life. I mean, it's lifted very much from my memory of that day in school in 1982. I even filmed it in the school I was in. So
oh really? That's this.
yes, and Wissam was sitting where I was sitting. The hallway is that
Wow.
same hallway. The way the cars are is the same way the cars were. So like all of that is sort of lifted from my memory of that day.
Is um is it because hearing the secretary talk about how long this conflict has been going on, is it is it is that really the first time that it was brought to the kids?
To this magnitude, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was the first time where you actually, because there were always, I mean, it's just like here, right? You could be somewhere and something could happen in downtown LA and you're still here. So this was the first day where, because it was coming both from the sky and the sea,
Yeah.
like, and you had the Syrians and you had the Israelis and you had everything. Like it was the first day, it was that day where everything was so loud that the whole country was overtaken by war. Like it was the one day where it's like, whoa, what is this? And I don't remember hearing aircraft before that day.
It was just so far away that it wasn't,
It was either in South Lebanon,
yeah,
but also at the time Israel was not really using a lot of aircraft. They would use like smaller helicopters to go in and do whatever amphibious things they did. And
yeah.
then the Syrians had aircrafts, but they never, I mean, there was never an air war. I mean, here you were suddenly under an air war that's going on right above your head.
We yeah, right above school buses of kids
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah, and
figure
nobody
it out.
expected this exactly, and nobody, no, we knew. I remember there was words that, oh yeah, Israel's entered the south, but it had done that before in 1978. So nobody
Okay.
expected that they would push all the way up to Beirut, and then the decision to push all the way up to Beirut, if I'm not mistaken, was not necessarily also a decision that Israel at the time knew it wanted to do. It was going to go this far. It just did. It just was like, it's like, okay, might as well just go all the way since we've come this far. So, and they were trying to change the PLO out of Lebanon at the time, but then we get it. You have a problem with the PLO. We get it. You have this, but like, what about everybody else who lives in these areas? I mean, the thing is, wars do not like the decision to have wars like do never take into account the actual inhabitants. I mean, as we see in Ukraine, I mean,
Yeah,
overnight, like people were like, oh my God, I just bought a flat yesterday and today someone bombed it. Like, why? You know,
yeah, it's between 2 powers that have nothing to do with the lives of the citizens that are living.
lives of the citizens. And this is really what was very like, it was so crazy that day. I remember, and I went home and the house was the tension in the house. My mom's neighbors were like in tears, even though we were in Ashrafi, which wasn't being bombed, it was West Beirut, but the sound was so horrendous and horrifying that you literally felt almost every explosion happening in your house. Like, it was
Yeah, like how
so,
can you hear something like that and be like, okay, well, my day is just whatever. I got to go to the grocery store, but there's a bomb going off in West Beirut.
yeah, 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 exactly. You know,
And if you don't mind, like how me asking, how old were you on
10,
that day?
10.
You were also 11. That's why you decided to make
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
Yeah,
main
as a
character.
matter of fact, I was 10, you know, but I
Yeah.
was kind of a mature 10, so that's why I made it 11. I was a little older than my age. But I remember sitting in my car, in the car with my mom after she
Yeah.
got called to the school and getting yelled at. And she's like, "You're too young to feel that way." Like, I'm like, "I'm not too young." Literally, that's what I was saying. Like, that
Yeah.
was,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, you don't know what it means, and it's like, and I really like, we probably shouldn't give away, the movie, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but parts, I really like the way that he finally is able to tell her. It's it
Yeah.
was so
Oh, yeah.
unconventional, and it was just
That was the most difficult scene to write. Like, how will he tell her, and how can it not be hokey?
yeah, exactly.
You know, so it's like,
I love you.
oh, I love you. You know, and at the same time, kids, it's very funny because you think that that's where it's gonna go because of his practicing it in front of the mirror, but like practicing something is not like it's very different.
Yeah.
And it's like, and to this day, I have a problem like expressing, you express in actions and behaviors more than you do in verbs. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's not something that, like, yeah, do I mean, kids feel those big emotions, but can they
yeah,
process
yeah,
what "I love you" means
yeah,
versus, "Oh,
yeah,
you're the one that gave me the note because, you know,
yeah,
of" you said it was Tigran, right?
yeah. Tigran.
Tigran, the character, which was, definitely I didn't see that coming. That was, um,
And then how he introduced him, he's like, Tag Tigran, Joanna, Joanna, Tigran. Yeah. You know?
Now, I guess just plot wise, I guess the question, just a quick question I had was it was it was the part where he goes and gets
Joanna.
wanted to come out to the bus, and like, I mean, I know that was probably done to give him the opportunity to tell her,
Hmm.
but was having a beer be left behind, was that significant of something? Is she's waiting for her parents, or was it just kind of just like we have to get them separated?
No, it wasn't really to get them separated. I never really thought about. I just thought that that was a given because Abir was supposed because the school would have never let Abir go
Yeah,
unless they had a record that she should go on the bus. You
and not
know.
wait for her
Yeah,
mom.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And Joanna is kind of was like there's a scene that I didn't end up leaving in the film, which is when Joanna and Abir first arrive at the school, they arrive together in the morning.
Okay.
So it just felt like it didn't really work to my I didn't particularly when I laid out the scenes, I just felt it was not particularly necessary and it was a bit superfluous because it became clear later. But basically, yeah, I mean the separation between them was very, for me it was just natural. It wasn't necessarily intentional because Abir, like all the kids ended up getting picked up by their parents the second or the third day, some of them. It was traumatic, and I just felt that she represented that, you know.
Yeah, like we hope, like, because even though all that's going on at the end of the day, and you want to see, the two connect on the bus,
Yeah.
I hope she gets home safe too, and I
Yeah,
hope.
I mean, because even if, let's say, she decided to bring Abir with her on the bus, it would be pretty much the same, you know. So I would figure it out a way for him to tell Joanna.
Yeah, it did work out, I thought, really well. So that was.
Yeah.
Now you guys are playing in. Are you still in LA?
We are in Lumley, yeah. We're at Lumley in LA, which is great. We had a really good week. We've been extended second week, and I'm talking to them about a potential third week. We've done a very unusual sort of release for this film in that I don't want it to overflow with a lot of sessions per day, but rather just enough to really have a concentration of people who want to see this film. And so I'm very excited about that. We open in Santa Fe on Friday, the 1st.
Okay,
So,
wonderful.
so if you know people in Santa Fe, in please tell them to go see this film because
I
like
will put out I have some people, I think, I only know a couple people in LA, so that's why I retweeted your the
yes.
LA screenings
And
premiere.
then we open in San Francisco in the Bay Area at the end of July, and there's some stuff in the middle in between. I'll let you know as they happen as well. Just because we really need to get we're at this cusp where we're trying to retrain cinephiles to go back to the to see movies, you know,
In the actual theaters, you mean?
in actual theaters,
Yeah,
because this is a film like you saw a link, you didn't see it in the theater.
right,
So if you see it in the theater, it's just another level of experience. And I've realized this from a lot of friends who have seen it both ways, and they're like, well, "What happened? Like, is this a different movie?" Uh, just because sound is so intrinsic in this film. It's like when I was writing the script, all the sound cues were written in the script because I don't have an antagonist. The antagonism in this film is sound, and
is sound. Is it
it's
like loud
it's
sounds in certain parts versus the absence of sound, or what do you mean by that
both,
exactly?
both,
Both.
both, both, both. I mean, sound is really the character is a character. Like usually, you have a bad person and a good person
Yeah,
in a film. In this case, like the sound is the character that doesn't speak words but exists so profoundly in antagonizing the characters as the film progresses. So I do hope you get the opportunity to see it in the theater because in the theater it adds yet another layer, you
I mean
know.
that would be unfortunately. I wasn't. I'm like 4 hours from New York
Where are
City.
you?
I'm in if you know where Syracuse is.
Of course, I know where Syracuse
Yeah,
is. Is there an independent cinema up there? Do you want me to send it up there now?
yeah. I live in Utica actually. Right
Utica,
in
okay. If there is an independent theater in Utica, I will talk to my booker to see if there's.
there's two. Well, there's one. Munson Williams Proctor Art Institute has a theater. They show independent films,
Okay,
and the Capitol Theater in Rome also does.
okay, Capital City. I'll talk to my booker to see if she knows anybody up there to see. I mean, we're
Yeah.
just starting to like navigate the theatrical on this. What's really great is I mean, I'm working with Utopia, who are fantastic. They believed us in this film. Originally, they wanted to take it like for digital and theatrical, but then COVID happened, and then after that, they put it out briefly on digital, and then I'm like, guys, I want to do a theatrical, and they're like, we can't take that on. So I ended up taking on the theatrical, and we're working
Right.
in conjunction now. Basically, digitally, it'll become available on September 21st, which
Oh,
is yes. So
is it going to be physical, like DVD, Blu-ray, or just?
I don't know yet. Actually, we arrived at this. I found this out 2 days ago because I asked them to delay it. Originally, it was going to be July, and now I'm like, let's do September, so we give a nice enough
Oh,
theatrical window for this.
yeah.
I think if we get to Blu-rays with this, I mean, this is the kind of film that would exist beautifully on Blu-ray with
Oh,
all
I
this.
agree. Yeah, the colors
Yeah, yeah,
alone, and just how it feels
yeah.
so.
Yeah. So anyway, but so that's going to give us ample time to sort of have the film breathe out throughout the US in different markets. Hopefully, at least screenings here, there, everywhere. So people who are interested would have the opportunity to see it in the theater.
Great.
So
I guess I just have, just to close, like, do you have any, do you have a website or any social media for people to
yes,
find out more about
yes.
the film?
1982thefilm.com is our main website, and then we are on socials as 1982 the movie on Instagram, and there's me as well, Oualid Mouaness by my name. It's all kind of linked, and Facebook is 1982 the film as well. So, and Twitter, 1982 the film or the movie, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I followed it on Twitter. So yeah, you're right. 1982 movie. I
Yeah,
think.
so yes, absolutely. And the website, generally, we keep the website updated to what cities it's screening and
Okay.
everything. And usually when we know that it's screening in a city, we try to blast about it through our socials as well, tagging the cities and whatever organizations we know are working in the cities.
Yeah,
So
I'd be very eager to see if you get it if I can watch it in the theater. That would be
I,
great.
let me see what's happening in Utica.
Yeah.
And if there's anything up there, that would be amazing. Maybe we can do a one-off or two, one or two screenings.
Yeah, yeah.
Because in these places, you don't have the audience for this, but if there's enough cinephiles in a theater, we give them ample time. They could hopefully, the theater will have prepped their people. They would come and see it. And generally, if I'm close, I always try to make it so I can talk to the audience because I love that. Because this is a kind of film that a lot of audience feel they want to talk about afterwards.
No, I agree. And for people to watch this video, I definitely urge people to watch this. This is very unique. I think it's one of the most unique films I've seen in terms of the relationships you've crafted.
Yeah, thank you
Between
so much.
everybody. You're welcome. Well, thank you for letting me watch it and doing the interview. I will give I'll give this link. I'm gonna try to have this up by tomorrow.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Um, and I'll put the website stuff you gave me in
Yeah.
the link and send a link to Ishil as well.
Yes, and if you have the links to the Los Angeles and the if you're posting it and you have the links to Lemley at Los Angeles as well as John Cocteau Theater in Santa Fe, that would be great.
Yeah, I will. I think I could probably get that from
Yeah.
her when I email her, and I'll make sure I have everything, all
All
the
right.
ducks in a row.
Thank you so much,
You're
Marcus.
welcome,
It
Ali.
was
Well, thank you
a
so much for
pleasure.
agreeing to meet with me. I really sorry I didn't get to it for your New York release, but I'm glad I was able to finally catch it while you guys were still in
Oh, thank
LA.
you. No, I know what it's like. It's tough. It's tough, and there's a lot of films out there. A lot.
Yeah, but this is a very good film, so I hope you continue to do well with it.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
All
Well,
right.
have a great day. All right.
All right. Bye, Marcus.
Bye.
Bye.